Hi, this is Harriet,
And I'm Iman.
and welcome back to
Trial and Error.
In this episode, we're debating the prosecution and defence of Scar in the murder of Mufassa.
And we couldn't find a 12-person jury for this, so we're inviting you to be our jury on this case. Please go into this forgetting everything,
Yep, you haven't watched the film. This
Nope.
is the only information you're getting.
so don't make any assumptions, even though we know that the prosecution is correct.
Yeah, but the prosecution isn't actually about being correct, it's being able to prove it. Because the job of the defence isn't to prove innocence, it's just to prove that there isn't enough evidence that they're guilty.
The job of the prosecution is, in reality, to maintain the standards of the court by putting forward the job of the adversarial system is to uphold the standards of the court by ensuring that, you know, the best arguments put forward by both sides, and that's literally the whole point of our system. But for the purpose of this, I would like you to know that I'm right, because I'm the prosecution. So, I'm right, guys. I'm right.
Okay, so the format of this episode, instead of being set out like a trial, because obviously we don't have witnesses, we don't have Scar here with us.
We couldn't find someone who wanted to be Scar.
At this very short notice.
Yeah, nobody wanted to be Scar. It's quite disappointing. Otherwise, we would have had like a little trial going on. But it's safe to say we're a bit biased to our respective
Yeah.
sides. So
We were kind of thinking that we could both play Scar for, you know, the opposite person, but then we kind of thought, that's not going to be objective, it's not going to be right, so let's just debate instead.
yeah. Even though there's some fudgy business going on the defence side.
There's no fudgy business going on.
But we're gonna go with it.
There's no fudgy business,
So
you just want a confession.
So it's a bit different from the usual setup of our podcast episodes,
Yeah.
because we're not really going to be going through bits of legislation, because that's not really how a criminal trial works. I
No,
guess.
it kind of works different to most other areas.
I think so. I'd agree with that. So it's not going to be quite as technical. I think that's another reason why criminal trials are so fun to watch.
Yeah, exactly.
It's because you don't really need to, like, if you've ever watched a shipping law trial,
Oh,
I wouldn't recommend. If you do want to, Royal Courts of Justice, open to the public. Sit in and watch a shipping law trial if you so desperately want to. But like, I think that's probably why criminal law is so popular. Like, partly because it's
just
easier to
interesting.
understand.
It's easy to understand.
Also, there's a grim fascination. with,
yeah,
like, crimes
it's
I think everybody
interesting,
has,
and there's so many details, and it's about there's often real people there in the courtroom being interviewed.
I mean, we can talk,
yeah.
if we're going to give a bit of legal background, we can talk a bit about what a courtroom
Yeah,
looks like
why not?
if we want. So, so most courts are open to the public,
Yeah.
unless there are protected witnesses,
Yeah.
in which case those are probably going times in which we will be looking at a closed court case.
Clarify, we're going on about magistrates' courts or crown courts?
Crown courts.
Yeah,
I don't think I actually have any experience in
No,
magistrates court.
neither do I. I
No.
thought you were on about a crown court. I just
Crown
thought
court.
clarify.
Old Bailey specifically
Yeah.
is the one that I've been to, guys. Not a flex. It kind of is.
Very much a flex. It comes up quite a bit in conversation.
It was really fun. Would recommend. But you have your public gallery, which is where, you know, anybody can sit. You get a lot of people on school trips sat in a public gallery. I mean, maybe it's quite a grim school trip, but you get a lot of people on school trips just sat.
It's interesting for people
Yeah.
like us. We enjoy it.
Sat in public galleries watching murder trials. But what for me was the most exciting part is right in the back of the courtroom, you have this plexiglass screen, and behind that screen is your defendant, which I think is really interesting. Like, you can, in some cases, look into the eyes of a murderer from where you're sat.
An accused murderer.
I mean, sometimes they are.
Well, yeah,
convicted.
sometimes they are convicted.
I mean, I think I watched one with a convicted murderer, like his second time being tried
yeah.
for like another
Yeah.
murder, and you could just like you could just look into this man's eyes
and
it was,
just you know what they've done.
and it's crazy. It's a really wild experience. Then you have
You've
the
got the
bench
yeah.
with the 12-person jury.
Yeah.
Just random people off the street. We'll say,
Anyone that couldn't find a way to get out of it.
yeah, I would love to do jury service.
Oh yeah, so would I.
Yeah, I
Everyone jokes about the best way to get out of it.
but
I would love
be
it.
so excited
Yeah.
to jury service.
I feel like we'd be that excited that they wouldn't select us.
Kick us off.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I would. I know it's a random selection
Yeah.
for the jury. that have no relation to the case. So I can't say like
Yeah.
that you couldn't really get yourself put on a case.
No.
But there
You can
is-
go watch a lot of
Yeah,
cases.
but you've
open.
got your randomly selected jury, 12
Yeah.
people.
And you've got your prosecution and defence.
Yeah, so you have your prosecution lawyer, usually from the CPS, the Crown Prosecution Service, and you have your defence lawyer.
For a lot of time, most of the time it's private.
Yeah,
firms.
most of the time.
Yeah.
They wear wigs and gowns.
Mhm.
You have the judge sits on their bench.
Yeah.
They, I know a lot of people seem to think that the judge decides on, like, the judge is actually really there to oversee.
Yeah, it's kind of a lot of it's to maintain order and make sure that everything's
Yes,
running fairly
yeah.
and that the jury is given the accurate.
Sentencing
information,
as well usually
yeah.
comes down to the judge, and what's really interesting is like the judge is also there to also inform
Yeah.
the jury on like sort of legal matters that they probably wouldn't be exposed to.
Kind of like if you've listened to other episodes when we're citing the legislation, like quoting specific sections, that is what the judge will do a lot of the time.
There are actually sometimes when the jurors have to leave on certain points,
Yeah.
of, like when they're discussing certain points of law. If one of the barristers wants to bring up a certain point of law, the jurors actually have to leave the room so that they're not sort of, I don't want to say contaminated, but I can't think of a better word, so like sort of the opinion isn't tainted. But they also, another fun little quirky thing is they address each other as my learned friend, which it's just so fancy.
It's just great. I don't know what it is about it, but it's just
a lot of
so
tradition
incredible
in the criminal justice system. It's just so fun to
tradition
watch.
in British law is
It's mad.
It's mad. It's immense. It's incredible to me.
It is.
How long this has been going on for?
But the thing is, it's not even just like Britain.
No, it's not.
We
It's
can trace
yeah.
it right back to the Romans.
Oh yeah.
And Cicero. I hate how much Cicero comes up in my life. But Cicero is a great example.
Almost as much as you go into the Old Bailey.
Cicero was a Roman orator, and I think a lot of the techniques
Yeah.
and sort of procedures that we see in today's courts would actually have been used in ancient Rome. Just a fun fact for you.
Yeah.
About like maybe 70 BC at least, if not earlier. At least around something like considerable. Over 2,000 years ago.
Yeah.
It's considerable. And we have we have our witness box as well.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably
That's the brief overview.
that's our brief overview of
Right.
what a criminal courtroom looks like. So if you want to put your minds
Yeah,
into
in
that
there.
setting,
You're sat in the jury box.
if you
you're-
all want to put yourselves there, now
Yeah.
we're going to tell
Yeah.
you why Scar is
Yeah.
guilty.
As the jury, you've never heard any of this before. You've never watched The Lion King. See what you think.
Yeah.
Right? Prosecution, do you want to start the debate?
see how I'm right. Okay.
Maybe not.
Okay, so I'm going to talk briefly, just I'm going to overview job of prosecution.
Yeah.
So you have to prove actus reus, which is the physical act of the crime. You have to prove mens rea, which is the intention. Causation, you have to prove that the physical act actually did cause, whatever's happened to the victim. So in this case, the death of Mufassa. And absence of defence, so you could argue for reduced responsibility if the defendant has mental health issues, issues with insanity and stability, and then also, motive, means, and opportunity. So today I am going to present to you the story of a brother living in the shadows, of a brother tired of being overlooked, a brother who wants nothing more than to have his place in the sun, a brother hungry for power, and the power of a king.
I'm going to chime in already. You say he's a brother living in the shadows. Yes, he does. I will give you that.
He physically lives in the shadows.
He does physically live in the shadows, but he's still a royal.
That doesn't mean he doesn't live in the
I know.
shadow.
Yeah, I'm not saying he doesn't live in the shadow of his brother, but he's still up there in society. So he may be jealous of his brother, but let's be honest, all siblings are jealous of each other. Yes, he's admittedly
I like those with siblings to think about the worst thing your siblings ever done, and and try and convince me that
I
your
would
anger
also-
couldn't take you to special places, especially when that kind of power's on the line.
But if you talk about the same point, but a different point in roughly the same way. Think about the anger you have felt for your siblings, but you've never killed them. I'd really hope so. Anyway, if you have, you probably shouldn't be on a jury.
But it's not like siblings haven't killed each other before.
No.
But
just
fratricide is a thing.
I know, but I'd say more people kill people that aren't their siblings than siblings kill each other.
You are most likely to be killed by someone you know.
Yes,
than
someone you know. Someone you know, but is that your
siblings.
sibling?
I'd argue siblings know you very well.
Well, yeah, but it's not on about someone that knows you very well. It's just someone that knows you at all.
I honestly think that's a moot point. I think that if Scar wants something enough, and I don't think that for most siblings, what's on the line is significant enough for murder. But in this instance, we're talking about two siblings that are fighting for an entire kingdom. And
let me bring this up to you. It's a slightly interesting but relatable point. Before Prince Harry gave up his royal responsibilities, did he ever try to kill William and, or anyone else that was in line before him so that he could be King of England? No, he didn't. Just as a general point. So
okay, let's go back to the fact that Harry has resigned from being a working royal, suggested the fact that he didn't want to be king anyway.
Before he met Meghan, he had plenty of time to kill William if he wanted to.
But
he didn't.
I don't think that Meghan Markle. This is getting into territory that we really shouldn't be going into now.
We've slightly backtracked.
I don't think we should have brought that up. I don't think we should be talking about Meghan Markle on this podcast.
My point is, just because one sibling's undoubtedly jealous of an advantage or just a role another sibling has, doesn't mean that they want to kill them.
I would like to go back to almost every monarch in antiquity going to war with people over less. You have uncles killing their nephews, brothers killing each other. It's been going on since antiquity.
But that didn't just happen with families. The point you seem to be making is that because they were brothers, he had more of a motive than if they weren't brothers. That is the point that I heard that you were presenting.
Jealousy is my point here.
Alright, that's fine.
Jealousy is my point. And
Well, then-
I think it's just...
And what does the fact that the siblings have to do with it, really?
I think it's more profound that way. It's something that's always in your face. It's not something distant that you can be jealous of. It's something you constantly have to live with. And also the fact knowing... The fact that their brothers is also succession.
But isn't that also sorry about that. Doesn't that also mean that he's grown up knowing that and has then had time to accept it? Because the siblings, it is not something new that he's become
Just because
jealous
you've had
of.
time doesn't mean that you have... He could have been... Well, I would argue he spent that time planning Mufassa's death.
Yeah. Okay.
So, I wouldn't...
Yeah.
I mean, I
That's
think what makes them being brothers significant is the fact of succession.
Yeah.
If he can get rid of Mufasa, if he can get rid of Simba, which he does.
Yeah.
Although, for the purposes of this trial, I guess we're pretending Simba's dead.
Yeah, because that's what everyone in the community thought. That's what Sky.
At the point at which this
Yeah.
trial will be taking place.
We're
Simba's there
We're assuming it's
singing
taking
Hakuna
place.
Matata,
Yeah.
eating grubs, and everybody else thinks he's
We're
dead.
assuming it takes place
Um,
basically as soon as Mufasa's
But
killed.
guessing, which is
died.
not realistic to the court system
No.
at all, given how
No,
long it takes
but-
to get a trial. But
But do you want to simulate how long it would take to get a trial in the kingdom?
in the kingdom, Simba's dead.
Yeah.
We've moved on to Lion King 6.
Yeah.
Lion Guard, is that what it's called? They've got like a film. There's like a TV series called The Lion Guard.
Not a clue.
If we're being realistic,
That is when the trial will be happening.
Scar is being tried posthumously.
Yeah. He's been dead about 20 years.
He's already
now
admitted
he's
to
on
the whole
trial.
pride that
Yeah.
basically. Okay, right, but set your
Anyway.
set your brain there.
So basically, we'd be at sentencing in 20 years' time with no trial.
Question of succession is what
Yeah.
makes them being brothers significant. So we're going to now. You know what? I feel like I spent enough time trying to set the scene that Harriet's been interjecting, which I'll be glad to do on your turn.
Yes, that's fine.
By the
that's
way,
fine. I feel like most of my turn is just going to be interrupting you and countering your points because that's what the defence does. Most of the time, the defence isn't presenting an independent argument. It's just poking holes in the argument of the prosecution.
Defense lies in the doubt.
Yes,
Is
exactly.
the saying. But I would argue that beyond reasonable doubt. Are you trying to grab the microphone off me now?
No, I'm just trying to move it closer so that we didn't have the same problem as the couple episodes back, and that we can actually be heard.
Okay. I honestly, I thought she was getting ready to throw her hands. So,
Not yet.
I would argue that beyond reasonable doubt, which is my job, Mufassa. Let's get the. I would admit I hate the Lion King, so
that's all I've been hearing about. Oh, why are we doing the Lion King? I hate the Lion King.
My heart isn't
Why
in it as
can't we
much
do
as it should be.
Hercules?
That is a great
That
film.
is
Would
a-
recommend.
yes.
It's an amazing film. My heart isn't in it, so if we get the characters mixed up, we're just going to ignore that.
Yeah, we're just
on my
gonna
part.
keep moving
If the
on.
defense was that something different because they like the Lion King,
Yeah.
but you know, I don't. So first up, let's talk about actus reus, which is the physical act. So we're gonna not make up a bit of forensic evidence, but we're gonna pull out a bit of forensic evidence here.
That we believe could perhaps have been, found
We
from the
see
body of Mufasa.
we see that Scar sinks his claws
Yeah.
into Mufassa's paws, and I'd argue that's quite a violent act. If you think about, the defense is going to make the argument he was just trying to hold
Can I
Mufasa
make
up.
my argument before you say what it's going to be? Yeah, my argument is
The
that
defense is going to try and tell you that, and the defense are wrong.
he sunk his claws into Mufasa as an attempt to try hold him up. At that point, he wasn't thinking of the short-term harm to Mufasa of digging his claws in him. He was just trying his hardest to get some grip so that Mufasa didn't fall.
I would argue that by digging his claws into Mufasa's paws, he knew full well that would break the grip that Mufasa already had on the rock.
I don't think he had enough time to think that through logically. It's not like he has fingers. He can't just, grab onto him. That is how they hold on to things.
But also, if he were just trying to hold Mufasa up on the rock, I think the indents made by the claws would be a bit different. I feel like there would be tears, going up towards the end of the claws of Mufasa's paws from trying to hold it up. But Scar, as we can see from the film. We're going to briefly pretend we've watched the film here.
Yeah.
Just so that we can explain where we're
explain
getting
the
our
fore-
evidence
because
from.
we don't have any forensic evidence.
Obviously.
We just have to assume what it
Yeah,
would
we
be.
have to assume there's
Yeah.
forensic evidence. We see that Scar pushes him, and he moves his hands outwards and away from the rock rather than just letting go. He's pushing. So I would argue that the indentations and the lacerations made by the claws would be different to that of if he was just holding him up.
How do you know he didn't just slip and his claws slipped out, and as his paw flew outwards, it took Mufasa with him?
His paw slipped like I know you can't see me gesturing here, but if
he
I
was-
was swinging my arm right out, I would like to point out
But if
Scar is an animal.
May I
with four legs.
speak? May I speak? If Scar was falling forwards and therefore, lost his grip and was trying to get grip himself, it's likely that his paws and legs and just checking my line and anatomy for a second would have also flown forwards. Also, if he was trying to kill him, why did he ever put his claws into him instead of just pushing him? He could have just pushed him downwards.
Could he have reached?
He reached to get
He
his...
reached the paws. He'd have to
Yeah.
grab the paws. Also, he has a little moment where he says he just wants to rub it in Mufasa's face.
We don't know this. Go back. We have not watched the film. Nope. Forget what's just been said. That is a mute point. We don't know that happened.
Okay, fine. We don't know that happened.
Do you accept that? Thank you. I'd like some verbal confirmation. Thank you very much.
That we don't know that Mufasa told him that long live the king, so he could look him in the eyes before he pushed him off.
Yes, disregard that statement. Thank you.
Right. Okay, I forgot my point now. But no. So what we were arguing is, what did he say? Why was he holding on to begin with? Why didn't he just push him?
Yeah, if he was going to kill him.
Well, Mufasa's paws were digging into the rock surface. He had to grab his hands to pry them away. And I think
Yeah,
given
but wouldn't-
given how far down the rock he was, I don't think that Scar could have like reached down and pushed Mufasa off without falling down himself, especially
just
given like the
swatted
weight
his-
distribution
He could
on
have
his paws.
swatted his paws sideways. It would have done the job way quicker.
But also by digging his hands into his paws, he was causing damage, knowing that.
Was he causing him damage? Or
I'm
was
sorry,
he just
let
trying
me
to
let me
help?
suddenly
Okay.
grow a pair of paws and dig them into the back of your hands, and you tell me if you can still
Okay.
go climbing.
So if you're
Harriet's a climber. So let's say we're on a climb. I'm on the
hypothetically
climbing
here,
wall.
hypothetically here, you're hanging off the edge of a cliff. My nails are really long, like yours when we're playing blooming cards. I'm not thinking, oh no, my nails are digging into you as I'm grabbing onto your wrist to stop you falling to your death. I'm just grabbing onto you as hard as I physically can. That is what Scar was doing.
Alright, your question was though initially was why was Scar holding on to begin with? And I've already told you why I think Scar was holding on to begin with.
That's fine.
It's because how else was he going to push him down? He had to pry his hands off. So, well, not hands, whatever the hell they are, paws off somehow. But there is.
You haven't given me any proof that Scar didn't just slip when he had hold of him or lose grip. Mufasa is visibly, if I'm remembering this correctly, please correct me if I'm not, visibly bigger than Scar.
I did not do a size comparison when we were watching this film. I think we should strike that.
Okay, that's fine. But, alright, okay, then let's assume they were similar size. Same size, okay. Scar would still likely be struggling to hold Mufasa up. Do you
Why?
accept that?
No.
Because as a lion, he's not designed to lift things up with his two front paws without help from his back paws.
I don't think
he's going to be
I don't
struggling.
think we know enough about lion anatomy to be making these claims.
He is going to be struggling to hold him up.
I don't think we know enough about lion anatomy.
He is going to be struggling to hold him up.
I'm not convinced.
He is still going to be struggling to
you
hold
lost
him.
me when we started talking about lion anatomy.
Okay, so scrap line anatomy. I think it's safe to assume that he would struggle to hold up Mufasa with his arm, leg, paw strength, whatever it
Right,
is.
okay, in terms of what the defense is talking about here, the defense is trying to say that she is trying to make a point about relative strength of lions and their anatomy whilst being unsure as to what to call the paws of the lion.
Right,
Like, I'm
my
arguing
point-
that the defense doesn't
Okay.
know what she's talking about.
Okay,
enough in terms of lion anatomy to be continuing with this line of defense.
I will restart my point. Okay.
No, you failed. You failed now.
Scar is probably not strong enough to pull Mufasa up, despite his best attempts, and therefore it's plausible that he just lost his strength or slipped and let go.
Who the hell lets go in, like, literally the way it's seen in the film, right?
No, we haven't seen the film. Please remember, we have not seen the film.
I feel like it's really hard to come up with forensic evidence.
It
in this
is.
case.
I feel like we might have to move on from this.
I think so.
Also, just a disclaimer, we gave ourselves prosecution and defence. We might not believe what we're saying.
No,
just a bit
but
of just a bit of a disclaimer. I'm aware a lot of what the defence may have argued may be a bit abstract. I'd just like to put out there that for the sake of this,
we're talking about lion anatomy.
for the sake
That's
of this, well, it's comparable to humans. If I was hanging off the edge of the cliff, you'd probably be struggling to hold me up.
We're not the same size.
If we were the same size, I think you'd still be struggling to hold me up.
Right, okay, right. You're hanging off a cliff. And no, I don't know.
I think you would.
I don't know.
Do we need like a recreation of the film or something?
You might never hear from Harriet again.
When she drops me off the end of the cliff.
This might be the last you hear of Harriet. I mean,
Right.
I'm
Not
not that I'll miss you.
Wow, thank you. Who will you do the podcast with?
Don't need anybody else. I don't need anybody else.
Who's going to be your defence?
Don't need one. You've got me. I can do everything. It's all
Can
good.
you?
Yeah. I can do everything except upload. Upload the YouTube
Okay,
videos.
so record, upload, overlay. overlay the picture that we have as the screen with the audio. She doesn't know how to make.
I've never tried.
And she wouldn't try.
I've never tried.
She wouldn't
to know.
try.
I've never tried.
I asked, and she refused. Right. Given that we've only gone through 2 points, we might want to hurry this along.
All right. Okay. So I'm gonna talk about now mens res, which is motive,
Yeah.
or like intention.
Yeah.
So
We kind of discussed
go
this a
back.
bit earlier.
jealousy,
yes.
desire to be king, also works as motive.
Yeah.
And then means and opportunity. Scar had the means and the opportunity. Scar was one of the only people at the scene of the crime, other than a lion that's like basically a cub.
Yeah.
There was
Okay.
no one there to stop him other than Mufasa. There were no witnesses other than this like baby lion that
Yeah.
we're assuming is dead. I'd argue that if we're going on about strength, Scar is strong enough to fight Mufasa to an extent. The circumstances in which it's happening, the stampede in which Mufasa is thrown, is very convenient and is very much a glaring opportunity for murder.
Can I ask a question?
It depends on the question.
Are you saying that Scar took the stampede as an opportunity to kill Mufasa, or are you saying that Scar caused the stampede?
I think we can make arguments for both. I think
I-
that if you fail to prove that the hyenas caused a stampede at
I-
Scar's behest, I think you could argue that he could take it as an
Yes.
opportunity. I think it's
yeah.
something that works either way.
Yeah, obviously I'm the defence, but if I was the prosecution, that is what I would argue, because as the defence, I'd say the hyenas started chasing the wildebeest because they are hyenas, it's in their nature. They were most likely hungry and they wanted food. So yes, they caused a stampede, but it was in their nature to do so.
And I'd argue that even if we're saying Scar didn't cause the stampede, even though, right, arguments can be made, this guy's a hyena gang leader.
Gang. How do you know it's a gang?
Because we literally said that we're going
As I
to
said-
interpret the hyenas as a gang. We're
there's
not
no proof
bringing
it's a-
discrimination into this.
Yeah, one point could be made by a defence that you're discriminating against hyenas. You're seeing him hanging out with a group of hyenas and saying they're inherently bad.
I don't think that's what's being said at all.
I
I think
how
We
what-
can- we-
why
we-
else
we
do you
can-
de- why
we
else do you decide they're a gang?
we can
without watching the
we
f-
can argue that humans aren't necessarily inherently bad, and they
Well,
can
yeah.
still form gangs. So I
Well,
don't
yes.
understand why the hyenas forming a gang in this scenario makes it
Yeah,
discrimination.
okay, that's fair enough. But where is your proof that they're a gang? What else have they done?
Literally the whole song and dance sequence that was earlier on in the
How
movie.
do you know they're not just singing and dancing?
I haven't watched the
Also, would the prosecution have seen this song and dance happen? No.
I don't think we've made a clear enough distinction as to how far in the film
No.
we're
No.
allowed to have watched.
Yeah, because I'm not sure the prosecution was watching. Yeah, okay. I will go with your assumption that they're a gang, despite the fact that you have no proof.
We literally discussed the fact that they were a gang before this, guys.
Yes, but I'm the defence. I've got to argue any point I physically can.
She's reneging on like the ground rules that we set
There were
earlier.
The ground rules involve the fact that we're assuming Simba is dead.
So she was so committed to perjuring herself. Which
I
is
was not committed to perjuring
per-
myself.
Perjury is when you lie on the stand under oath. And in the scenario that this was going to be a mock
I
trial,
made a
as it
point.
initially was.
I made a point that if Scar couldn't perjure himself, he was just going to confess, and that would be a really, really boring
I'm sorry,
episode.
right? How many criminal trials have you guys seen where the defense attorney actually, the prosecution actually goes up and asks, "Did you do it?"
Okay, can I read out one of your questions you were going to ask?
What is one of my questions?
Let me just find it. Why were you at the scene of the crime? If Scar didn't perjure himself, he would have said, "Oh, to kill Mufasa."
Because he was just strolling. I don't know.
Yeah, but that's perjury.
Well, he'd have to think of a way around it, wouldn't he? A guilty man's a guilty man. I don't see how that's the prosecution's problem that he's guilty.
Yeah, but
Like-
why?
I don't
A murderer would perjure themselves on the stand if they were asked a question like that.
We don't know that, A.
No, we don't. But
And-
I feel like that's a valid assumption.
We're going through the law here. The law, like, we're doing a murder trial here. We're not trialing perjury.
Yeah.
And also, the prosecution asking a guilty person a question that proves that they're guilty.
Yeah, I think that's
is
fine.
a moot point.
I think that's
Like,
fine.
that's not my
But-
problem.
Yeah, but I think it got complicated because obviously in a real trial you have more forensic evidence than hypothetical claw marks. So
Yeah.
if a murderer did perjure themselves, the prosecution has other evidence. In this trial, obviously they don't, and I feel like that's kind of one of the reasons we ended up doing it in this format.
Okay, well,
Anyway, that was kind of very off topic.
here's the means, the opportunity, the motive. Everything is there. Scar is the principal.
Everything is there, apart from solid proof that he did it. You have no other witnesses. We've already said we're assuming Simba's dead because that's what everyone...
Are the wildebeest sentient?
Right, we had this debate. Who else is sentient? For this, yeah, I feel like the wildebeest aren't sentient.
But why would the lions be sentient?
I
and the
don't know.
wildebeest not be sentient?
I don't know. Also, weren't the wildebeest gone by the... No, they weren't. Never mind, ignore that.
No, because they like trample over him.
Yeah, so... Okay, follow-up question.
Like the drop wasn't even that far.
This is less a legal question because obviously Scar dropped him into this situation anyway, so he would be to blame. But did the drop actually kill him, or did the stampling kill him?
I'm actually not sure.
No,
I think we'll have to rewatch.
I
That
feel like it's kind of a mute point because obviously Scar dropped him in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm very much straying away from being the defense here, and this is more just a debate from either side.
I'm not entirely sure
Yeah.
what killed. Well, we don't have an autopsy, do we?
No, but we would. If this was
an actual trial,
we would have an autopsy.
we would have an autopsy.
and we would be able to figure that out.
We do not have an autopsy.
Yeah.
I'm beginning to think we should have just made up
We
some
should've just
forensic
made up-
evidence.
yeah.
I feel like we should have made up a bit
third
more.
party make up some forensic evidence, present it to us.
Sorry, guys.
We might have to do a V2 of this episode.
Yeah, we might. We
We'll-
might
we'll-
bring
we'll-
on some guest stars.
Yeah, we'll have some witnesses.
the best actors
Oh yeah, the
you've
best
ever
actors
met.
we can find.
100%.
Yeah,
For free.
yeah.
The best actors we can find for free. But in summary, Scar's
Yeah.
guilty and the prosecution have won.
No, in summary, you have no solid proof that Scar is guilty.
In summary, we are not the jury. So,
No. In summary, I feel like we haven't made many very coherent points.
in summary,
my
that's quite rude.
I'm joking, of course. My main point is that there is no solid forensic evidence proving that he did it. There are no witnesses, and there is doubt in the evidence that the prosecution has presented as to whether he did it.
I'd say that there is probable cause for every single aspect the prosecution
There is
needs.
doubt. Oh, sorry, I'll let you finish.
Well, that's very gracious of it, guys. That's a first.
It may be.
It might also be a last.
You cannot say anything about interrupting.
there is probable cause.
Like, talk about taking the microphone.
Honestly, she doesn't even deserve to speak at this point. Right.
Yeah.
There is cause. Actually, we need to prove causation, but we don't have forensic.
Yeah.
We don't have a forensic analysis.
That's what we were saying. If we had a forensic
Right.
analysis,
So-
this would be a lot more. It would
Technical.
and I could, like the prosecution could present more. You know, I don't want to say coherent because the evidence you presented is coherent.
Wow.
But I mean, evidence that probably has less doubt, but the defense could also find
I was
some
saying,
more.
Because you have to
slight
prove
doubt.
We have to prove causation, so we're going to assume that Mufasa died from
the fall.
the trauma of hitting the ground.
Yeah. Okay.
So
that's fine.
we're gonna assume that causation. Scar pushing Mufasa off a rock and him hitting the ground and dying.
But
Causation.
Did he push
Physical act. Mufasa. Scar. We'll get there eventually. I'll learn the difference.
him? No, you will not.
Scar dug his hands his hands, his claws, his paws, sharp thingies on the end
His claws. I feel like
of his front
know
digits.
that one, perhaps.
dug into the back of Mufasa's hands, breaking his grip, and then threw them outwards.
Through them.
Through.
Might want to pick a different verb there, love.
Well, I'd argue he did basically like throw his hands off the rock.
You haven't seen the film.
I haven't seen the film, but the claw marks suggest there was a throwing motion.
The claw marks found on in the non-existent autopsy of a lion.
That is exactly what it shows.
Okay, quick question.
We cannot be pointing out scientific failures here in an autopsy that hasn't happened
One scientific
about a
failure.
cartoon lion.
How do we know that it was Scar's claws?
DNA.
Okay, that's fine.
Sweat.
Yeah, I thought you were gonna say that. I just thought
Probably.
I just thought I'd open it up so that we.
Sweat?
Yeah.
I mean, I reckon, like, he was
Lion
probably
sweat.
pretty sweaty. I don't know. Oh, like a bit of fur, maybe?
Yeah, probably get a bit of fur in there.
I so mate, do claws have, like, like claw prints?
I'm not sure because they're like fingernails. You don't get a fingernail print, do you?
Ooh, I don't know, but, like, what if he touched him with his paws as well?
Yeah, but his paw prints were likely to be over him anyway. They were brothers. They were around each other constantly.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to all the listeners who had to go through that.
Yes, all the listeners.
To our 2 listeners, I apologise.
We love you, Jane. We love you, Will.
Shout out to Basilius.
Shout out Basilius if you're there.
If you're watching.
Sorry for the lack of academic journals on this one. We have tried. We, to be fair, our thought going into this one was we need to work on debating.
I thought we were going to do a mock trial.
Yeah.
Was the thought, rather than anything else.
And then it
just
turned
so happened
into-
we didn't have the resources for
Yeah.
it.
So we've turned into a debate,
It
and we're
is true.
delaying this for later on. It
We
is.
will
yeah.
redo this episode.
It is.
It's
2 o'clock in the morning. People weren't willing to act as Scar in a trial at this point.
No.
We made the calls.
We
The
did.
calls were not answered.
We tried. We'll get round to it eventually.
yeah.
Guys. But
Yeah, I think.
to summarise, Scarhead, actus reus, manus reus means an opportunity, and therefore he is guilty.
He is not
Please-
guilty.
Please leave,
Right.
Please
At
leave
that
your
point-
opinions in the comments.
Yep. Try and remember that you haven't watched the film. If anyone actually hasn't watched the film, by anyone I mean, I don't know. Who would
I
be?
think Jane will have.
I feel like
watched
Jane
Lion
and-
King.
yeah,
Actually, Will
has-
might not watch
Will,
Lion King.
Will, can you please make a coherent point on this? Remember how great I am, and an answer. Right.
not
Thank you.
ethical.
Right.
This is not ethical.
We hope to see you in the next episode. And thank you.
Stole the microphone. This is unethical practice.
Thank you and
Please
goodbye.
Agree with. Stole the microphone. This is unethical practice.
Thank you and
Please
goodbye.
Agree with